That was awesome. Thank you so much for the intro. I feel so excited to be part of this project and really honored to be invited and contribute to see what y'all are going to be growing. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to try and keep to my time. I feel so much excitement. This is a new presentation I haven't given before, and I feel really excited about it. But I'm going to try and contain that to fit within our schedule. So this is going to be about some of the ideas and kind of some guiding insights I've learned along the way for this early stage of community building. When you're really starting into your project, things to think about as you're jumping in. So my intro already covered most of this about my community tour and traveling and studying and working with communities. This is my life. This is my passion. This is my zest. The one thing I would add to that was just say that while my partner and I are building a life in Maine and are creating magic there currently, I'm back here in Northern California doing my annual artist residency at a wonderful community project called Cosmic Honey in Mendocino. And so this is a really fun, almost more of like, I would say it's almost more of like an artist country club more than an eco village, but it's a spot I come back to every year and get to dive into my craft. So I'm over on the other coast for now, but I'll be back in your neck of the woods next month. So for me, the building community is about a lot more than just figuring out what your tax status is and figuring out how to share a bank account or figuring out how to, cook meals together. It's in many ways like a spiritual journey. I find it's like it's a deep reckoning with yourself and the world and the people you trust and love and your dreams. And it's just a really powerful journey to go on together, and to go on and learn new things about yourself and learn new things about people that you love and new ways to collaborate. And so for me, this is a saying by an author that I deeply respect and have the honor of working with, that community is dependency and everything else is socializing. And I think that saying just kind of will make more sense as you keep going down the community journey and realize how much you're building an like real true interdependent ecosystem together. And Chris got that wisdom from living at Canticle Farms, which is an incredible community in Oakland. So today I'm going to go with the three main ideas I'm going to go over today for building a strong community. Is first, the building a healthy relationship soil, really grounding your community in a rich interpersonal network, both with those people that you're collaborating with directly and kind of people that are helping your project. The next principle is to find a mission that your community can survive compromise. And so really getting rooted in a mission that you're working on together that's going to be strong enough to endure all of the different things the world throws at you. And it's really going to try and potentially kind of try and break that dream. But you got to find a dream that's strong enough to endure through it all. And then the general principle that building community, you're going to get knocked around and things are not going to go kind of, might create the 1, the 5, the 10, the 20-year vision, which is a beautiful journey, but also just embracing that you're going to get knocked around and things are going to fall apart in unexpected ways. And that's all part of the journey. And it's not that you're doing it wrong necessarily. It's just part of the process. And so the idea, the third principle I wanted to share was when you get knocked down, just try again. There is no failure. There's only feedback. So integrate that wisdom and try again. So these are the three kind of ideas that I'm going to be going more into on the presentation with some community examples and frameworks to think about. So the first one I'm going to start with is that build healthy relationship soil. So a lot of the building the healthy relationship soil is kind of transitioning from maybe some of the normal relationship paradigms that kind of the rest of society is operating in, and then shifting into a new paradigm to create this dream. And so one of those, the first one here is like this concrete block. I think a lot of professional relationships can end up being very contractual and very focused on things being finite and predictable, and trying to live in a society that's very transaction based often. And so transitioning out of that is moving your relationships into more of a fertile ecosystem dynamic, where there's going to having this space for a lot of flux and a lot of change, and having all that flux and change, your project able to move with it. Then the next one is the idea of the silos. A lot of societies kind of built in, like, these people do farming, these people do accounting, these people, like, you know, all these different skills, and everyone's kind of siloed off in their various professions and their various networks. But for the community building is more shifting into thinking about how to make a mycelial network where you're just sharing nutrients in a much more fluid way. And then finally, in classic, I think people often dread meetings and fear meetings, and meetings have kind of almost a punishment, can feel like punishment in certain contexts. And so also shifting that dynamic to think of ways that your community can come together and be meeting and be finding joy and creativity and really deep fulfillment in your various meetings. And so kind of shifting from boring board meetings into this is an example of was a Beltane holiday at Twin Oaks in Virginia. And so still on the theme of building healthy relationships, I wanted to go a little bit into some examples of what these could look like in your actual community project. And so for this first one, which is about, you know, building this rich soil, thinking of different ways to do that. So this is a community right there in Belfast, Possibility Alliance, to help build healthy relationship soil. They hosted an incredible interpersonal communications trainer to come, someone, Carl, who's traveled North America and now lives in Europe. And so kind of a trainer that they really believed in, and everyone pitched in money to help pay for his flight and support his accommodation and feed him. And then he came, and probably 30 or so people who either directly live at the Possibility Alliance or in close collaboration with that project were able to attend this multi-day training together. And so this was a way of, like, everyone skilling up in some interpersonal tool as a team. And that's, like, just a powerful way to jump into your project on the same page as to conflict resolution and such. The other example I have here is Hemu Desuit, a great community in Quebec. And they did fundraising for theirs by doing crowdsourcing so they didn't have to go through a bank. All their friends and networks donated a little bit of money, and they were able to put together a big old loan through, like, hundreds of micro donations from their wider friend network. So there was a way of, like, jumping into their project, not being in debt to a bank that was going to give them a mortgage, but being in debt to their friend network, and already just, like, building interpersonal trust and vulnerability into their project from the moment that they bought it. The next idea is about the mycelial web network building. Is just thinking, once you get a little further down in your project building, is just thinking about how both of these pictures are from Cambia Community, another project in Virginia, and just thinking about having daily meetings or weekly meetings where you're talking about what your dreams are for the projects and figuring out ways to help each other both manifest that dream in the project and in the greater world. Really letting one another's, they used to call it the Dream Alliance, and I thought it was just a very beautiful idea about really finding out not just how people are going to show up at the project, but how they're going to show up in the world at large, and how you can work together to help make those dreams come true. And then the other picture on the side here is a work party. I'm a deep fan of work parties. If you need work parties organized, this is my passion, is the art of bringing people together to make something and sing and dance and food. And at the end, you have a new structure. And so they did an incredible job, and they really brought people from all across the country together to build this really stunning wooden structure. And so that's just another way of kind of using the whole mycelial network, as opposed to just, you know, hiring a contractor and dumping a bunch of money in that way. And then finally, just meetings, just remembering, like, a lot of your childhood friends, right? If you think about the people you love most, that you've built a life with and that you would invite to your wedding and that you want to see for decades to come, like, you didn't start your relationships by sitting down and having meetings about how you were going to manage your allowances together. I mean, well, maybe you did. I don't know. There's definitely some people who probably did have best friends who just talked about how they were going to manage their allowances. But in general, your best friends, you, like, celebrated together and you did what you loved and you found a way to kind of just have fun together. And so remembering that as you're building community, that it's not all just about having meetings and figuring things out, but it's also about really integrating celebration and self-expression into your community project. So this is, my partner does jazzercise in very, very, very funny ways. So this is a picture of her doing a jazzercise class at a festival that we host in California every year. And then at the bottom right is La Cité Écologique, another incredible community from northern New Hampshire, who does, every year they do performances, where the kids get to come on stage and perform, do silly theater. And that's just like a really deep part of their cultural identity, is this like annual kids theater. So just don't get too caught up in the adulting. All right, my next one is to find a mission that can survive compromise, right? So now we're moving on to the next principle, right? The first one, which was build healthy relationships. And then next idea is find a mission that can survive compromise. And so this slide is going to be a lot to take in, but I just feel really excited about it, and so I'm going to give it a shot. And the basic root of the idea that I'm sharing in this slide is that we, particularly in America, America is incredible in so many beautiful ways, and I'm so proud to be an American for a lot of reasons. But at the same time, we also do have a culture that, compared to some, is really rooted in individualism and does a lot of things to support individual ownership, individual thriving, individual striving, and not necessarily as much to support the communal. And so what I've done in this little graph is meant to show this is a hill, and the higher you head up the hill is more communal, more interdependence. And then the force of gravity pulling you down is the individualist force of society's legal and cultural structures. So these are the legal norms, these are the social norms and the legal structures that kind of make it easier to do things alone than together. And so if you look at the bottom pool, it's like, this is kind of the default, right? Like, it's like water flows downhill. Like at the bottom, the level of collaboration that's potentially easeful in society, in America, might be like a condominium, right? And so that's kind of a level of collaboration that is supported, fairly straightforward. But then you get one step up from that. So now we're starting to move up the collaboration hill, and it's like housemates that live together and cook meals together. So it's like a little bit more collaboration that's starting to move into some more vulnerable places. And then you move up higher, now you have multiple people on the deed of one property. So it's like still totally legal, but it requires extra level of like thinking outside the box, and an extra level of really understanding the impacts of shared finances and shared property ownership. And now you become higher up from there, even more cooperative, is a mission-driven cooperative. And so now you're actually like a legal cooperative that has a mission. So then this next pool is just thinking about other countries like Quebec or in Europe, where they have just like a higher level. This is their default. I wanted to show this as like a default for the communal living in other societies. And this is just to give gentleness, because sometimes people will look at projects in Europe like, I want to create an eco-village, and you like look at Europe as an example, and it's really hard to even meet their baseline levels because there's already so much support in a lot of ways to live communally. And so I wanted to show this just as a way of kind of being mindful of which projects you're gleaning inspiration from, and remembering to set your project in the context of the place that you're trying to build it, and consider the context of where these other projects are. So then finally move all the way up into full commune. And so as you are taking on and creating a mission and a vision for your project, just thinking about how many deviations from the default of your society that mission is, and realizing that the more deviations from the default you are, the bigger, bolder it is that you're going to be pushing uphill. And like, are you ready to push that uphill? And so that I just share this because sometimes projects dream really big, and then sometimes that means they crash really hard. And that's where this is coming from. And so I wanted to share an example just to kind of give this little context. Is in a community like Twin Oaks, full commune, 100 people, 52 years old, and thinking about where they fit on the scale of communal living. They're like, all of their metrics are way off on the right. So these are some metrics you can think about when designing your project, being like, how much free time versus community work time do I want my project to have? How much personal space versus communal space do we want? How much self-support versus community support? How much cultural outsourcing versus cultural autonomy do we want to create? And these are kind of some metrics that I feel like show where you are on that distance from the default. So I won't go too deep into this. There'll be other presentations where I can pick this apart more, but these are kind of just where different projects are lining up on how much. So Twin Oaks, I would say, is like many deviations away from the default, and they've worked their ass off and gone to court, had to go to court against the US government for 20 years to get there. So it's like many deviations away from default. And then La Cité is like a fewer deviations away, and then eventually you get to like Belfast Cohousing, which I think is a great project in a lot of ways, but it's also in many ways more closer to default society as far as personal sharing goes. Final idea that I wanted to share is when you get knocked down, try again. And so if you came to the Collaborative Living Maine presentation, I really was moved by Cicada's presentation about their journey of creating their commune in upstate New York, the Glamis commune. And this was a graph they showed about the turnover of residents and even the founders. Like I remember with their community when the two founders ended up leaving, only one left 2 years in, like almost the first year basically, and the other one left a few years in. And when I got to see them when they started, and just to think about what a transformation that was to have, like if Carolyn and Peter in 2 years are gone and there's a whole nother crew of people who are running with this Maine Artists Cohousing, that is like such a deep shift in the project. And the fact that they didn't give up and they kept running with it even when the initial crew was gone from like pretty early on is truly incredible. And I think it just shows that if you just keep getting knocked down but don't give up, just like this beautiful cherry blossom tree, like it's totally knocked over, it's like a dead tree, and then it keeps sending up its branches and a new whole tree is created. And I think that for me is just an image that represents what building community is like. And so yeah, keep getting up and trying again. Oh, that was my short and sweet, like breakneck tour of communities and little insights. I would love to stay in touch. So I work on this project called Collaborative Living Maine. We're meeting on Tuesday, July 12th for a community roundtable to learn about all the different community projects in Maine. We're meeting Sunday, August 14th for Sociocracy Skill Up. So if you're going to level up your skills in sociocracy, that'll be a really fun afternoon. And then of course, stay tuned for next year's super fun conference that I want you all there for. All right, thank you.
Woo! Feel free to unmute and